What's going on, guys? This is Michael MGF, and today I am so relieved to finally be doing my unbelievably, unbearably long anticipated showcase video to celebrate last year's release of X-Men Apocalypse. And for this video, we've got Charles Xavier, Mystique, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Quicksilver, Psylocke, Magneto, Apocalypse himself, Storm, and Nightcrawler. And first of all, thank you for clicking on this video. So, what happened? Why am I doing this video in March of 2017? The movie came out in May of last year. In a couple months, this movie will have been out for a freaking year. So, going into 2016, I was like, hey, Deadpool, Batman v Superman, Civil War, X-Men Apocalypse, Suicide Squad, I'll have time for all the things. But then when it actually came time to make the Civil War figures and then the 3 spin-off figures that followed, I was like, oh, maybe making an entire set of figures for a movie that releases only 2 weeks after is completely unrealistic. So that didn't happen. And then I was like, okay, maybe I can make maybe I can finish them before Suicide Squad. And Suicide Squad was, by the time I started on these, which was June of 2016, Suicide Squad was in like 2 months, and so I worked on these for like 2 weeks, and then I was like, okay, I need this next month and a half to make the Suicide Squad figures, and that's what I did. And then you know what was right after that? Brick Fair, Virginia. So I was like, okay, I'll have plenty of time, I'll finish all of these right after Brick Fair. That didn't happen. So I was like, okay, I'll finish all of these right after Rogue One and Christmas and New Year's. And I said, I'll have them done by January or February. You'd think 2 months would have been enough time. Honestly, guys, I don't even know what happened. I barely even started this year. I don't even understand how it's March, but it is. And I'd finally finish these figures. I'm even late for my last deadline, or my last missed deadline. So let me just address one more thing. Where's Archangel, Beast, Moira, the rest of the movie's cast? I don't care. I'm not making them. I only finished these because I wanted to. Because I wanted to just have them completed and have the showcase on my channel, and also because I didn't want to continue to hear about this until the end of time. So, yeah, thank you for your incredible patience with these. To those of you who have really been looking forward to this showcase, you have no idea how much I appreciate that. It's been so long. So, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so first up, Charles Xavier. This figure may look pretty simple for the most part, and that's because he is. It's really just a painted face. You have the painted torso, you have the painted cuffs around his wrists, but a lot of the work actually went into the wheelchair, which is from the City People pack that I think debuted like fall of last year, if I'm not mistaken, or summer. And so if we just take the figure off the wheelchair really quick, you can pretty much see the modifications I did. First of all, I removed the handlebars from the back of the wheelchair. Those are no longer there, and I painted around the rim of the seat there, and those studs are just there to keep the wheelchair in place for this segment, by the way. So yeah, then the like you have a little bit of some painted sections here on the front, and I also did a lot of sanding on this section here in front on the wheelchair so that I could glue on this little piece of rubber there to kind of close up that area so that it wasn't so hollow in the front here, like right above the wheels, and so the wheels can still rotate and everything. And I actually painted the middle of that in a gunmetal color, and this was all done last year, by the way. I finished Charles a while ago, so there's really not much else to the figure. There's a painted pair of legs, but there's really not much to see, so I'm not even going to pull him off again. There he is. Next up, we've got Jean Grey, and if it wasn't already obvious, I made all the X-Men in the costumes that they wear toward the end of the movie, and unfortunately the reference was not all there. I didn't have a ton of reference for every part of their costumes, so even though there is a shot of like Quicksilver and Storm's backs like in the movie that I kind of glossed over and didn't notice, I had already painted the backs of their torsos, so that's just something I wanted to address early on about the inaccuracies you'll notice of these figures. A lot of parts I just had to wing it and just try to figure out a design, but Jean Grey here, I think I actually got pretty accurate for the most part, and you can see she's in her blue and yellow costume, X-Men logo painted at the bottom of her waist there, and then also you'll notice I did use an area-like curved torso for her, as always, and then also the hairpiece is actually the second hairpiece that I went with. This is actually V2 pretty much, as the first one was this. It was from Lord of the Rings, it was from an elven character, I can't even remember the name of them, I think it was Tariel, and I took her hairpiece and I tried to sand off the ears, but the impressions were still already there. I didn't really like how this looked on the back, and note. And so even though a bunch of people on Twitter and social media, you know, wanted me to stick with this, I kind of decided against it. And there were thankfully a pretty decent like split number of people that wanted me to go with this too. So I ended up just sticking with this. It is a little bit more accurate to the hairstyle he has at the end of the movie. So there's that. And then also the face is from a Harry Potter character that I can't remember the name of, but I painted over the eyebrows, I whitened the pupils a bit more, and then I also painted over the lips. And I think I might have used a bit of Brasto on the sides. I think there might have been some marking. Oh yeah, there were freckles on this face. That's what it was. And I removed those. And so that was all done last year, and that's why I'm struggling to remember. And then one other thing I want to mention that I did when painting this figure was getting the blues right. Like this metallic light blue was not an easy color to get, and that was a mixed color. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. And the back is completely inaccurate. I have no idea what her back looks like, and maybe there's some more reference available that you guys know about that I don't, but I personally never found it, and again, I don't really care. So yeah, there you go, Jean Grey. Our third figure being Cyclops, he's actually mostly accurate. Like there was actually a decent amount of reference for Scott's new suit by the end of the movie that I was able to get last year, and I finished him this year, but most of the work you see here was done in like June of 2016. That includes the torso, the visor, and other things. But it's pretty much all self-explanatory, all painted in a base color of denim, and then I just went ahead and did all the painting with like the straps that were probably the most complicated part about making the figure. It wasn't the X-Men symbol, it wasn't all the detail on the gauntlets, it was definitely the straps, because getting all those shapes within each black strap, not an easy thing to do. And then on top of it, yellow paint is just not a cooperative color to work with either. It's almost, it borders the annoyance of like white paint. It's clunky, it just doesn't cooperate when working with it, but I was able to at least get it to look pretty great on this figure, and I think Cyclops turned out looking pretty awesome. The visor is painted onto a printed head. I don't remember which head it was, but you can see that I did go with a red stripe for like the line in there. I forget what it's called. The visor within the visor there, we'll call it that. And originally it was black, but I ultimately changed it to red a while back. And then the hairpiece is, you've seen the hairpiece before, you know what it is, but I painted in a standard color of brown, and I also did a little bit of sanding work kind of like right on the top there. So yeah, aside from that, that is pretty much it for Cyclops. I think he turned out looking pretty great. I wish he wasn't such a side character in the movie, because Cyclops is definitely one of my favorite X-Men, but I'm pretty happy with the figure and how he turned out. Next up, Mystique. Mystique was actually the first figure I started on for this, and I'm really happy the way she turned out, and she's also pretty accurate for the most part too. And a couple things I want to talk about. First of all, the hairpiece. The hairpiece is clearly inspired by like the standard Widow's Peak hairpiece that you've seen God knows how many times at this point. However, if you look at the back, you can tell that it is obviously Mystique's hairstyle. This is absolutely a hairpiece tailored specifically for Mystique. It is not sculpted. It is not, it's nothing like that. It's actually fully ABS molded by freaking Christo, South African eBay seller who prints and molds parts just like the Lego Group and is known for his incredible figures that he sells that people buy for outrageous prices. And thankfully, during a private auction when I was getting the Miss Marvel hairpiece for Black Widow last year for Civil War, I also picked up a Mystique hairpiece for when the time would come to eventually make this figure. I didn't know that would be March of 2017 that I'd be finishing and showcasing the figure, but it is what it is. And so then another thing I want to talk about is not only, how great that hairpiece works for the figure, but also that I took inspiration for the painted face of Mystique from Phoenix Custom Bricks printed Mystique. And I mean, this head is a lot better than mine, but I still wanted to have a painted one so that it would look at least, a little bit more consistent with my figure. But either way, I still think that, like I said, this head is definitely much better. And I'm pretty sure last year I took a lot of inspiration for this design from this one. So link to his store will be down in the description below. But yeah, definitely painting all those little scales onto the face was pretty complicated, and I'm kind of glad I didn't have to do it for the rest of the figure and that she had a suit by the end of the movie. And yeah, so I mean, aside from that, fully painted figure, it's pretty self-explanatory. Back isn't totally accurate, don't care. Area light curved torso was used, and like I said, I'm really happy with the way she turned out. Magneto definitely comes close to being probably one of my favorite figures in this showcase, like right next to Apocalypse. He's super detailed, and a lot of work went into this guy. So to run you through it, he does have, I did start with a standard Lego Magneto helmet. I sanded like the inner top area of it before painting it all in the red metallic, the light red metallic color you see, and that's a mixed color and took a while to get right. But then there's just an absolute ton of detail that is mostly accurate actually on the top of his helmet that does go all the way to the back, and it is symmetrical and all straight, and I'm really happy with the way the helmet turned out because it was all very tedious to do and get right. You'll also notice I did use the Legolas head because I think the Legolas head is by far probably the best likeness to Michael Fassbender Fassbender in Lego. I painted the collar in black, but just to differentiate this one from the one I did in 2014, I've been showing him to you with the aggressive facial expression, which I definitely prefer to display with this version of the figure. So yeah, then you'll notice that the torso is pretty insanely detailed, surprisingly also pretty accurate, and I'm really happy with the way that turned out. Very time consuming, and like I said, just the most detailed torso in this showcase. So yeah, then the arms do utilize a lot of 3D elements. The gauntlets are 3D, the shoulders are obviously 3D. Those are made with the same rubber material that I use on a lot of 3D elements, and I did put a little bit of sealant over those so that the cape would not damage them. And you know, you can pretty much see all the detail that's going on here on just the arms alone. It's pretty crazy stuff, and it is consistent on his left arm too, and you can see all that going on there. He does have a pair of painted tiny tactical glove tops. I painted them in black so they'd be consistent with the black color that I used for the rest of the gauntlets, and so there is that. And then also the last part of the figure would definitely be the Cape Madness accessories that I used here, and the Cape Madness waist cape and the little piece of fabric that I used here is all trimmed down to size to go over the pegs on the legs. Did not mean for that to rhyme, but you can pretty much see what I did here, and it's all painted in my own dark red, as are the legs themselves, with a little bit of detail on them, and the boots to keep it consistent with the rest of the figure. So I'm really happy with the way Eric turned out this time around. I mean, I could not have hoped for more out of my custom Magneto figure, and like I said, he's easily my second favorite figure in this showcase. Next up, we've got Storm, and a lot went into this figure too, but mostly in the form of like the techniques that I used to pull this one off. First of all, the Mohawk. The white Mohawk is a Lego Minifigures Series 4, I think, Rockstar Mohawk. It's the rubber one, and I use a black one actually, and I trimmed it down to size before painting it. God, the last time I did that must have been Voss from Far Cry 3, all the way back in like 2013 or 12. So yeah, and then I weathered it all in a light gray color so that it would look a little more realistic, so that it wasn't just like pure white and weird looking. And I didn't think it would work at first, but I think it definitely turned out looking pretty great, and it works pretty well for the figure. And it's kind of hard to make out that weathering, and there's a little bit of a black splotch on the back that I have to paint over. Anyway, you didn't see that, so you can see that the head is painted as well to match the likeness of Alexandria ship. Is it Alexandria or Alexandria? I can't remember, but I did paint the face, and I'm really happy with the way the face turned out. The likeness here, I think, you know, came out looking pretty great, and I did not go with the white eyes or an aggressive facial expression. But then you can see the cape is perfect for Storm. I mean, it is exactly Storm's cape. I painted it in a very dark gray color, and it originally was from Cape Madness. It was one of these. I don't remember which one it was. You can look for it in his store. I'll link it below. And then, yeah, but the rest of the figure is fully painted as well to match her suit from the end of the movie, and you can see all that paintwork being done here. And the little jewel on her chest, that is also a 3D piece that I painted as well, and glued into place. Aerial-like curved torso, of course, and then the rest of the figure, you know, it's all there, all the paintwork being done here, and I'm really happy with the way Storm here turned out too. And yeah, I'm really happy with the way all these figures turned out. You know, they're like definitive X-Men figures, and I'm, you know, super satisfied with them all. It's just, it's March 2017. And Quicksilver, man, I loved his scene in the movie so much more than the one in Days of Future Past, but unfortunately I feel like they put a lot of their budget into it, because man, it really showed in the third act. Some of the green screens and green tints on characters that were not color corrected it was kind of bad. Anyway, this figure I'm really happy with, obviously based on his suit by the end of the movie, and I have him in a running stance because he's Quicksilver, and why wouldn't I, to at least start off the segment. You can see though, this figure is painted in, you know, for the most part in light gray, silver, dark blue, and you also have a lot of metallic blue running through here. But the hairpiece was an Anakin Skywalker hairpiece that I sanded a little bit. Did some very similar things that I did to like the Galen Erso hairpiece that you didn't end up seeing in that showcase anyway. I don't know why I brought that up, because that was actually afterwards. Anyway, and I did remove like this sideburn here on the left. Actually, I removed both sideburns, and you can see the goggles and the entire fully painted face I'm super happy with. I mean, the entire head and this entire figure, I think, ended up, you know, turning out really great. And you can see also that on the back, it's totally inaccurate. I realized that after the fact, after I'd already painted it, there was actually a shot in the movie of his back, and I didn't catch on, and yeah, that happened. Anyway, the whole way that I went about like this figure was, of course, trying to keep the silver outlined in light gray, and you know, you have the knee pads on there. You also have one thing I want to mention here, and that is that to get this metallic blue color to look good, you can kind of see that I did weather it a lot. You can sort of make that out, and it's because the metallic blue was a little too light, and so I had to do some weathering to kind of darken it a bit. But like I said, I think this Quicksilver figure turned out looking really great. The hairpiece and head especially came out honestly perfect, and so I think this is definitely probably as good of a Quicksilver minifigure as I can make, man. I think, like I said, he's pretty cool, so check him out. Lego Evan Peters in his Quicksilver suit. It's pretty great, man. Our last X-Man is Nightcrawler, who I was never going to make. I never liked Nightcrawler until X-Men Apocalypse, and then I was like, that guy's pretty cool. I guess I have to make him now, but then I finished him almost a year later. Anyway, so starting off with the hairpiece. The hairpiece is a Ninjago hairpiece. I forget which character it's abused on, but it's painted in black, and you also have the blue highlights painted on the front there, as accurate to Kurt's hairstyle in the movie. Removing it, though, you can see the fully painted face, and all of that was definitely pretty tedious to do, all these facial markings and these designs. I tried to keep as accurate as possible while constricting them onto a minifig head. I went with an aggressive facial expression. He's got like the golden brown eyes, and those are in a metallic color, serrated teeth. It's all there, and I think it turned out looking pretty cool, man. Putting the hairpiece back on so he isn't bald for the rest of the segment. You can see the painted torso. He's actually pretty accurate, and all the X-Men pretty much are. I went this whole showcase saying how inaccurate they are, when really it's only like a few designs and like a few backs of the torsos that were inaccurate. Anyway, yeah, the painted arms turned out looking pretty great. Those wrap around the entire arm, of course, too, and then the legs are fully painted. I've got those little points on the front there for the toes, and you have all that design work and all that painting going around all four sides of the minifigure's legs, and I think the legs are definitely pretty great, and the toes add a lot of depth to the contrast of the minifigure. Then also the X-Men symbol, I decided I would go with a 3D piece, and that is because if I painted it onto the belt and then the layer that the tail takes up on top of the belt, it would have looked really separated and weird, so I went with a Lego antenna piece. I pulled it out, cut that off, sanded the crap out of it, glued it into place, and then I painted the X-Men logo on it. And I think it's a little too low, but I don't care. And then lastly, one thing I want to show you is, of course, the tail. The tail comes from the Lego Minifigures series, God, I don't even remember, the Halloween series from last year, I think, and it's a little devil's tail that I painted in blue to put on the minifigure. And this idea actually came from Kieran Bug on Twitter. Link to his Twitter will be down in the description below. After the Logan showcase, that I was waving this tail around saying, Nightcrawler's the last figure I have to finish. People started sending me this tail, which is exactly Nightcrawler's tail, and there was no reason to do anything else than sand the crap out of this and sculpt the tip. So I saw it first from Kieran Bug, and so link to his Twitter will be down in the description below. So thanks to that guy. Pretty cool dude. So anyway, there's Nightcrawler. Turned out pretty great. Second to last, the man himself, Apocalypse. And to say this figure was time-consuming to make would be the understatement of last year. So there's a lot to cover here. I'll try to break it down as quickly as I can. But the head, first off, started out as a blank black minifigure head, nothing on it. I sanded off the stud to achieve the shape of En Sabanor's, like his weird head shape. I don't even know. And basically, what I did was I sculpted onto the top of it, and when that cured, I went ahead and sanded around the sides of it before gluing on bits of bent Christmas wire that you see on the sides of the head. Yes, he has 3 tubes in the movie. I don't care. And I pretty much just went ahead after all of that was said and done, and I painted everything you see on the head. So let me go ahead and slide it off the body here so that you can see what it looks like detached. And the wire and everything was all, done in the effort of, making sure it would be accommodating to the rest of the armor and the minifigure, so that when I take the head off and on, the tubing would be unharmed and, not damaged. And all that detail you see on the top of his head wraps all the way down to the back there. And you can even see the face there, which was all done, to match the likeness of Oscar Isaac. Just crazy stuff just to get the head right. And then you have the rest of the figure here, and you can see that pretty much what I did here for the armor. We'll pull that off first. The torso armor started off as a Lego minifigure series, I don't care, Galaxy Enforcer chest piece, and basically I just went to town with the thing, with a freaking filer. And I just sanded the absolute crap out of this to get it from point A to point B. And so after a ton of sanding, a bit of sculpting beneath the shoulders, and also this entire back piece, after sculpting this on, I was finally able to glue the tips of a couple of, actually 4 plant pieces onto the back and paint the entire thing with everything you see on it. And my God, was this time consuming to pull off, because you just take a look at all that detail that wraps all the way around, at least 4 layers of everything. I mean, just to get that Egyptian pattern right, that's good, that runs within his armor, just, you know, totally crazy. A crazy amount of detail going into this chest piece, but I'm really, really unbelievably happy with how that turned out. Originally, I was going to use a General Zod chest piece, but that ended up not being the case. That was a decision I made last year too, but you can see that I do have the arms all fully painted too, and a ton of thin striping on each. Just a ton of work going into this figure. Even more bits of Christmas wire glued onto his arms that wrap all the way around to the back, but they still fall and rest just underneath the torso armor once it's put on. And, you know, it's all done and made to accommodate each other piece. And so, yeah, even more detail on the back here would be these 3D elements that have their own sets of painted detail. And then finally, to wrap this up, we've got a pair of painted tiny tactical glove tops and a ton of Cape Madness accessories, one glued onto the back of the torso, and then the rest all done and trimmed and modified to look just like Ensaba Noor's waist capes that he has in the movie. And then even, and by the way, all 3 of these are all 3 separate pieces. I mean, you put on these first 2, and then this middle one goes on top, and then the waist cape itself, and then you can see all the detail of the boots and everything else wrapping around what was originally a blank pair of black legs. So this figure was absolutely insane for me to make and get right, but like I said, I am so happy with the result, and I can easily say he is the best minifigure in this showcase, and that is why I talked about him for 4 minutes straight. And I think that's it. This is probably one of my favorite figures. So yeah, even though some people don't agree with his look, I thought he was pretty cool in the movie, and Oscar Isaac delivered a great performance. So that's just me, and I made a pretty kick-ass figure out of it, and I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know how many times I've said that. This is going on too long. Finally, here we are at the end with the last figure, thank God. Psylocke, Olivia Munn. This figure I'm also really happy with, and I think turned out looking really great. We'll start off with the hairpiece. You've seen the hairpiece before. I've used it on many minifigures in the past. This time painted in black with the inside of it like sanded completely out, because this hairpiece just doesn't cooperate with minifigure heads or torsos. It's really a pain. And so after sanding and drilling the crap out of the inside to make it accommodating to a minifigure, painted minifigure anyway, I went ahead and painted the likeness of Olivia Munn onto the face, and I think that face turned out looking pretty fantastic, as did, you know, a lot of the faces in this showcase. And so I have no idea where this sword came from. I have like 2 of them. This was one, and I just painted up the thing in a metallic black color, painted everything that you see on it, and then I did it on both sides, and this took me an entire day to get all of that on there, and it was pretty crazy. I painted all the rivets within the handle in purple, but that is it for the sword. So yeah, then the rest of the figure is pretty much just an area-like curved torso, and the entire figure is painted in a like metallic bluish like light purple color, and it took a while to mix and get that right, but I'm really happy with the way that turned out. And her legs are all fully painted. It's all on there, and it took a while to make sure I kept this figure as accurate as I could. Purple highlights on the back of the hairpiece, and then she's got the red sash, and that is pretty much comprised of just like a painted red belt with all the wrinkles, you know, running throughout, and that's all painted and weathered a little bit. And this is also, by the way, a Cape Madness accessory that I pretty much just went ahead and actually glued onto the back of the belt piece before painting everything you see on it. So yeah, aside from that, I'm really happy with the way the torso turned out. Let me go ahead and really quick remove the hairpiece so that you can see what I'm talking about here, and you can see the front there, super detailed and really accurate. And then the same can be said for the back. However, obviously I didn't paint a lot of the back because I wanted to make sure the back was you know, safe from any more damage the hairpiece might be capable of, because like I said, not the nicest hairpiece to painted minifigures even after a ton of drilling. But yeah, there you go guys, that is it for all the minifigures in this showcase video and all of the X-Men Apocalypse minifigures in general. We still have a few more things to discuss, so we're almost out of the woods. It's almost over.
Because you are alone, and I am not.
I'm free! Alright, there you go. That's it. It's finally over. they're done. That's it. Sorry guys, I'm a bit emotional. But now that I can finally move on with my life and I don't have to hear about this ever again, definitely let me know if you enjoyed finally watching this video, and maybe if you found yourself inspired to make figures from a movie that's a year old by dropping this video a like below, and your opinion on any of these figures down in the comments. Even though, guys, I'm not gonna lie, you don't have to. It's okay. But if you want to keep up with me and all the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 figures I will be working on in this next month and a half, hopefully I'll be able to finish them on time, and but it's going to be kind of challenging with Celebration being thrown right in the middle of the time that I'm supposed to be working on them, so that's going to be totally insane. But you can totally keep up with me and all that stuff before you see it over here by following me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's all down there. You know what to do if you care. And that's it. I'm done. It's over. I'm free. Oh, I'm just gonna go to sleep on the floor. That's what I'm gonna do. So relieved to finally be doing my unbearable. Yeah, but one and then one fuck.
There's nothing to be afraid of. It's quite.
I was able to find a decent amount of reference of him for him. I can words, and you can see and you can pretty much see how the head was done here, and it's completely out of focus. Isn't that just fantastic? Wow.
I'm here for my family too.
Are you kidding me? You're still not telling him? They might reboot us after this. Tell him now. Before painting the likeness fuck. There's a little hair on Cyclops' leg. I don't even care. Next up, Ensabanope. Ensabanope, yeah. After almost a year, we're finally done with the X-Men Apocalypse Showcase. Wow.